The three engines, Henry, Gordon, and James, have decided to go on a strike because they felt like they weren't treated properly. They thought that because they were tender engines, they should be treated better. As they sat in place, Sir Topham Hatt gently walks in.
Alright, hello you three. How are you all feeling? Still not wanting to work because of that strike? Well, that's alright, because I got something to—
Well, sir, it's not that we don't want to, no. It's that we can't anymore.
What do you mean? What do you mean you can't work?
Sir, I think you should look at the right.
Huh? Oh my gosh, James! What happened to you? Where's a pair of your wheels missing? And where's your tender?
Sir, I don't feel so good.
He's been stuck with that
Angry face ever since he had that accident.
What? What accident? Oh, and Henry, why are you in a shed? And why does your shed also seemingly fit your tender despite it being so short? And why does it look like it was built last minute for some type of video?
Well, sir, I don't have a tender anymore. That's why I'm hiding.
What? First of all, how? And second of all, how come James isn't the one hiding? Out of all people, I thought he would be the one doing it.
He must have still been dizzy from that accident.
Okay, now tell me, what accident?
I just parked the tender near my siding, and then I left.
Why would you detach from your tender anyways in the first place?
Well, and then I ran into that thing.
Oh yeah, slow down, you need rest. But I genuinely wonder how crashing into the tender made this.
I lost my tender in that explosion.
There was an explosion? Yes, sir. It even affected my tender. The wheels of the tender and the tender itself are discolored from my main body. It's disgrace. Of course you're complaining about the smallest things. You're Gordon. What? Okay, you know what, Henry? You're probably gonna get a new tender soon. And James, you're gonna get prepared in a nice new coat of red paint. Well, sir, are you gonna get my tender fit? After all of you stay put in your sheds for a couple of weeks. This would have been avoided if you all actually just shouted your coaches. Anyways, allow me to introduce to you. Percy, is your new smart little engine who's gonna run the line with Thomas and Edward, while you guys stay put here in your shed. Stay put here and learn your lesson. Good. Bye.
Sir, no offense to Percy, but Percy looks kinda off. You seem to praise him despite his bases not even existing in real life. And people give me a hard time for not functioning properly. Even though I was based off plans of a prototype A1 that probably didn't even exist in real life. Basically, what I'm saying is, we don't really exist as a real locomotive in real life. But how come Percy gets better treatment? Also, no offense, alright, Percy? Don't worry, none taken.
Wait, Henry's a prototype A1? Does that technically mean we're both brothers? First of all, Henry, I feel like what you're saying is a bit out of character for you. And second of all, Percy actually functions despite being an oddball. Unlike you.
I don't understand how much I suffered. Rubbish! You're too fat, you need exercise!
Okay, but Henry's right though. Percy's an oddball. He has no bases. He's a hodgepodge. It is simply not proper for an engine to have no bases. Well, what do you want me to do? On my railway, we do not care if the engines are a hodgepodge or not. We simply care if they're useful or not. What do you want me to do? Go to the TW Wiki and change Percy's form from there? Here, look at this.
Wow,
Ew.
worse than I like.
Wait, hold on. I see another option. What's this? JodgePodge? What the heck is JodgePodge?
Try pressing it.
Alright.
Whoa!
But this Percy isn't based off anything. No wait, this program of Percy is actually based on something. See? It looks like this. though with a little bit of liberties. You know what? Fair enough.
Hey, this is pretty good. But how did this happen, sir?
Well, I found this video and it shows exactly how. What? Come on, watch.
Alright, hello fellas, welcome to my video on how I made this Percy out of a hodgepodge of different engine parts. Yep, while I made the whole skit to be on how Percy was a hodgepodge of an engine in the series, ironically I made him out of different engine parts myself, ranging from cap, boiler, chassis, running board, smoke box, face. Actually, to put it simple, each part in the model was made from different parts. So a bit of a backstory, about 3 years ago, during 2022, I started work on my own custom Percy. I was inspired by this Percy from this guy, this Percy from this guy, and this Percy from this guy. I was inspired by this Percy from Magic Railway Studios, specifically because look at it, it looks so unique looking, and I've never seen anything quite like it. I also had a rough idea on how to make my Percy from Domeless Engines custom Percy, which was inspired by Eric Perry's 53 Percy. Shocking. So in the video, he used the Peter Sam boiler. And what is Peter Sam? A narrow gauge engine. And you know who else is a narrow gauge engine? Skarloey. And I just so happen to have an old knockoff Skarloey from my childhood. And I stole the boiler from it. Yep. You may or may not wonder, why did you destroy your childhood toy? In that, I will respond with his smoke box was gone. Yeah. So apparently, I think when I was a kid, it was so loose that it popped off randomly one day, and ever since then, it's gone. Scarlet has just been smoke boxless. So yeah, I cut off the boiler and cap, and now it's a fat bed. He wasn't really serving any purpose other than looking weird, but yeah. Oh yeah, the Skarloey boiler looked uneven, so I made it smooth with some green clay I had. Then I decided to destroy my knockoff James. If I remember correctly, I separated the chassis and the running board, and also removed the boiler, but the cap stayed there. I painted it up a bit for a scrap custom. That's why it looks painted in some of the footages. I then also shortened his running board a bit. Why? Because I also shortened the chassis. How'd I shorten the chassis? I took a knockoff Oliver chassis. You can use any 3-wheel engine chassis. I just specified it was Oliver because I want to make a point that my Percy is a hodgepodge of different engine parts. I only found out it was Oliver's in the first place because when I was checking the chassis recently, I saw his name in my handwriting. I have wrote his name on the bottom of the chassis, since bootlegs don't have names on the bottom. So since bootlegs generally have terrible quality, it was easy to cut the chassis in half. I used a 3-wheel chassis because there's already a hole in the middle, so it was easier to cut it. I cut it and jam it with a scissor and knife, and I did it! It split in half. So I sanded a bit, cut some more, and decided to use green clay to fill some spots. And yeah, there, I now have a shortcut. Then I watched some other Percy custom videos. One of the best ones I've seen was NWR Brake Fence Custom. He had sanded the edges of the smoke box since he said every Percy has a circular smoke box. Inspired by this, I also did the same to my Percy. So time to put the pieces together, eh? And I did not like it. It did look kinda off. And after that, I felt demotivated and I put it off. Until like 3 years later at January 2025, I miraculously found a video about making a custom wooden railway dock. It was so good it resurged my custom making energy back, and I decided to finally continue making my Percy. That channel and guy I mentioned is Gio, very cool guy. So with newfound motivation, I decided to finally continue my Percy, with one goal in mind, to finish it before February 2025. Also, yeah, technically, right, it took 3 years because technically I started at 2022, put it off, and started at 2025. So it technically took 3 years. Can't blame me. Yeah, technically the truth. Okay. Okay, before we start showing the process, I'm gonna give it a few more context in case you don't get what I've been yapping about for the past few minutes.
So the first main 7 engines somewhat have a basis. Thomas is an E2, Edwards is a Furnace Railway K2, Henry was a prototype A1, which is also the same class as Gordon, which technically means they are brothers. If you want more context about Henry and Gordon, I'll probably do it on a video about Henry, but this is about Percy. And speaking of Percy, he is not based on any single locomotive. Nothing pre-existing. And apparently Audrey could not find a single locomotive with Percy's traits after the illustrator who drew Percy, Reginald Dobby, drew him. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've never seen an engine with a water tank looking saddle tank ever in my life. So Audrey's compromise? Make his basis unknown by saying he was built with different components of different companies, so he's essentially a hodgepodge. There have been many attempts to find a decent basis for Percy though, one that actually resembles him. And that's where people have landed on GWR 1338 and GWR 1340, aka the Trojan. Now I like to credit the Unlucky Tug, because that's where I first heard about GWR 1338. But somewhere in time, I found out about GWR Trojan and thought, hey, he looks nice, let's make a Percy model based off him. And so I did. You can see the flashback. I literally explained the story. One of the main reasons why I wanted to make a Trojan Percy is because the cab looks similar to James' cab. Hence why I used it on Percy instead of giving him his normal cab with the bunker added. I originally intended Percy to be the Trojan a few years ago, but now revisiting the project again, I thought about making GWR 1338 as Percy instead, because I had already sanded the edges of the smoke box and it would have been a waste not to use it. But in the end, I just decided to mix both together. So in the end, Percy still ended up being a confused mixture. Honestly though, I like Percy as a basis engine. One day I might redo Percy to make him like that. But right now, we're going on GWR 1338/1340 accurate Percy. Or realistic Percy, whatever. So around that 3-year period, the chassis actually broke in half. Like the glue or clay just broke like that. So that was the first thing I was gonna fix. I removed the clay and planned to replace it with some putty filler that I recently got from the DIY store. It kinda did not work the first time I did it. It broke in half again. So this time I used some super glue and it actually worked. Whoa, it sticked. But it required some sanding to smooth it out, but it did indeed work. And I took a 1-day break and continued the day after that 1-day break. So this is how the chassis look like. And this is also how the running board look like. Like the chassis, I also used green clay, but for a different purpose. When I had shortened the running board, the front was not smooth, and smoothing it with sandpaper would have made it too short. So I used clay and super glue to make it smooth instead. But during the 3-year period, it had already fallen off. Now I've been yapping about the green clay, but in this picture, it's nowhere to be in sight. That's because I replaced it with putty filler. I put the board on the chassis and did a small test run, if you could call it that. The wheels don't run smooth for probably obvious enough reasons, but whatever. If I remember correctly, I think the putty filler I added was a bit too much, so it was way too long for the chassis. I sanded it, but it broke off, as represented in this video since I didn't capture the moment it broke. But then I realized, hey wait, what if this running board makes Percy too tall when he's supposed to be a short guy? So I did some thinking and found those cardboard tackings that you can find on most clothing items. I got 2 from a bag, super glued it together, and coincidentally, it was the same size as half the running board. Perfect! But the running board won't be replaced just yet. Then I took another day off because I was busy. I decided to put the pieces together to see how it looked, and I thought it looked nice actually, although the boiler was kinda short. I figured I can make a taller layer, so yeah. Oh yeah, I had also used putty filler to fill out the missing spots in the chassis and smoothed it out. After doing so, I wanted to get it colored. So I got my black paint marker and colored it. Here's some photos. And here's me struggling to record it and color it at the same time with both of my hands. I couldn't hold the chassis because my other hand was recording it, so, you know. Here's how it will look all colored. Some spots near the magnet were uncolored, but that's alright, because it could be hidden by adjusting the magnet. My little brother was testing it a bit and realized something. He told me what it was, and I am actually shocked I didn't notice it sooner. I'd like to thank him because I probably wouldn't have noticed it until it was too late. Apparently, both magnets were front magnets. As you can see, I tested the magnets with Thomas and Gordon, and both of them really were front magnets. So I decided to fix it up by removing the magnet that was covering that one unpainted spot. Oh, that's him messing with Percy, by the way. I tried using a box cutter and using my hands to twist the magnet. It did not work. I was also being careful doing this because I didn't want to accidentally rip the chassis apart again. Because you know, putty filler and super glue isn't that strong. So I got my trusty white knife that I've actually been using for projects like these for years. And yeah, it broke in half anyway. Ugh. So I just went all in to remove the magnet and it worked! Yay! There was some rusty dusty dust, so I got it out and wiped it. So I adjusted the magnet by flipping the magnet part, but apparently, I already did that. But forgot because when I tested the magnet on Thomas, he just refused to connect. He's literally going left and right, dodging the magnet, bro. What? I adjusted the magnet by turning it around and putting it correctly. When I confirmed it was the correct way, because Thomas actually wanted to connect this time, I put it back in place. Not before coloring that empty spot though, and then I actually put it into place. It was a bit loose even after I jammed it and twisted it in, but that's alright. I glued the chassis together, but not before making sure the magnets are actually in correct place. Because I'm paranoid like that. I super glued the chassis and also wanted to glue the magnet in place too. It did not work in that position, so I opened the magnet again, placed the super glue and glued it. Glued the piece that I managed to salvage, and when it broke, I glued the piece that I managed to salvage when it broke off, and filled the empty spots with polyfiller. Then I put all pieces together and I say, it's really coming together, huh? And yes, I apologize, the thumbnail was actually kind of a lie, because this photo was taken in 2025, not in 2022. But that's because I forgot to take a photo all those years ago, or when I continued the project. So this is the closest we get. Don't worry though, this is still similar to how it looked back then. Only the front buffer beam / running board thing and the chassis have changed. Anyways, continuing from what I last said, there was one problem. The cap and the boiler was a bit too long. So for the next thing I did, you expect me to shorten one of them, right? I scrapped off some paint from the boiler and sanded it first, and then I actually wanted to shorten it. I tried to separate the cap and the running board first with my bare hands. Did not work. So I just washed it and went straight to cutting instead. I used a cleaver knife, and now I'm gonna warn you. Have an adult help you if you're still at a very young age. You may hurt yourself bad, so please have someone old enough to help you. And by the way, I won't be held responsible if you hurt yourself doing this. I don't have the money to pay for your bills anyways. So my setup was the knife and the rolling pin. I jammed the knife at the part of the cap I wanted to cut and hit it with the rolling pin. It worked well, but I stopped when my dad told me I was damaging the rolling pin. I checked and he was right. I am so sorry, Mom, if you're watching this. After that, I went back to my workplace and tried to cut the remaining parts. It was a terrible experience. My hand was worn out from cutting because my trusty knife was dull at that point, so cutting it made it even harder than it's supposed to be. At that point, I just thought it might be easier to cut from the sides, but the darn running board was blocking it. So I jammed it between the cab and the running board and broke the board of it. But that's fine because I'm replacing it anyway. There were some bits of wood stuck in the bottom, but it was cut off and smoothed with putty filler. Same with the front of the cab. And there, the cab is done. Now, even though the cab was shortened, the Percy still looked a bit weird and off, so the boiler was shortened next. Cutting it was actually easier than the cab. This is probably because the wood is old, because I'm using my childhood knockoff store over here. You know, childhood. But that's just a theory. But it being easier to cut also made the process easier. So it's so easy. In fact, I ended up cutting the boiler in half. Bravo! It still made cutting the parts I wanted easier though. I thought it was too short at first, so I used the same card tacking to add to the boiler length. The thickness of the cardboard was the same as a half running board, so yeah. I added some cardboard to the left and right side of the boiler. I have no idea what these things are called, I don't know. Then I proceeded to coat the thing in putty filler. When I tried pairing the boiler on Percy, it looked off. Then I remember, this is one of the reasons why I stopped last time, because the shape looked off, the shape of the boiler. So feeling demotivated, I thought it was the smoke box being the problem at that time. I searched around online for good replacements. I found the used Adventures Percy, a Take-Along Percy, a Capsule Percy. I was almost about to buy one, but then I remembered my goal and how impatient I am to complete this, so I didn't order them. I then remembered in NWR Breakfan's custom Percy video, on the first Percy he used a normal sized smoke box and it still looked good. So with that inspiration, I proceeded with the original things I had. I nailed it down to what I needed to do to fix. Make the funnel taller, because that's how it is on the actual locomotive, and add a curve on the top of the boiler, because saddle tank locomotives' boilers are actually curvy and circlish, like the real wooden Scarlet. But for some reason, the knockoff boiler looked more flat and squarish on the top. So my idea was to add some layers of cardboard I got from a pencil box on top and putty fill it to create that curvy shape. Next thing was extending the funnel. Now, unlike older knockoffs and the official wooden railway stuff, the smoke box and funnel are one piece and not two separate pieces. Seems like I'll have to make my own funnel instead. My original plan was to use this piece of wood and use some ceramic clay and add the original funnel on top. It didn't work, the clay cracked, so I opted to just cover the wood with cardboard to make it thicker. Ended up being too thick and tall because the original funnel didn't look good with it, so I thought why not use a Lego stud for the top funnel. I looked at it and it might work, so I took a set from my little brother's knockoff Lego collection parts and sanded the top with this cool technique I built and attached it to the top of the funnel. Looked a bit funny, but I thought it would look better all colored. It still looked funny even after I colored it, so I removed it to adjust the funnel placement. After all that, I placed the pieces and realized the boiler was way too thick. It was more thicker than the cab, which is inaccurate. So I cut the sides and sanded a bit, and now it isn't thicker than the cab. Hooray! I made a dome with ceramic clay, but removed it to add a thin layer of this cardboard paper thing. Why? Because I am scared the putty filler would just suddenly crack all of a sudden when I'm finishing the model. Then I added the dome back. I then thought it was the best I could do and glued them in. The boiler was still a bit thick though, maybe because of the cardboard I added later, but I didn't really care anymore and just let it be. I painted the thing in a layer of white because I don't even have any primer. My dad said white could be used as a substitute, so I used it. I went out with my parents for a bit to get the last thing I needed: green paint. I originally opted for green acrylic paint that I can use to brush paint, but they weren't available, so I found a darkish green spray can instead. It said it would be glossy, so I just got it, yeah. It was already 7 PM though, it was getting late, so I just slept and continued tomorrow. Last day. Wow! I woke up around 9 to 10 AM, brushed my teeth and ate breakfast, and got started right away. I covered the metal part of the wheels with some tape so that part wouldn't be painted, and hopped outside to spray the pieces on an egg carton. I had my brother record me spray. This is one of my first time spray painting, so I didn't really know how, but I just rolled with it. I added uncuttable coats because I did not count them and they were all over the place. As I was waiting for them to dry, I decided to repaint Percy's eyes. The original looked like this after I modified it, and this is how the original bootleg face looked like. Scary.
We call this Thug Percy. Look at that for a face. All of his facial features seem to be gravitating towards the central, and it really does just make him look like a thug you'd expect to see outside the corner shop, and not Percy from Thomas. But
I made the eyes white and stuff, remove excess paint, and drew the pupils. Ha! He's staring off into the abyss. Don't worry, I repainted them. Moving on though, the paint on the body and wheels was dry enough, so I fit the pieces again, and man, it really was coming together. I did the lining on the boiler, and looking back, it was kinda ugly, but I tried my best to make the lining then. Because the paint marker I used at the time had the tip being too thick, and the smaller tip you can swap was broken. But you know what, it's alright. I tried to use tape to cover the paint, and so my lining would be straight. Bad choice. The paint ripped off. Probably because it was dry enough. Yeah. So I ditched the tape and went by pure hand lining by paint pen. I painted the sides of the running board red, made the dome yellow because I didn't have gold that time, and drew the 6 using the smaller tip of the paint pen. So on the actual Percy model, his smoke box is a bit high up, so I wanted to do that with my Percy. And yeah, it worked. Wait, we're basically almost done. It is time to assemble the pieces for the final time. Very good, I had to adjust it a bit, but it was done. But Percy is finally done. He swim with Thomas. A good thing I shortened the running board because Percy ended up being nearly the same height as Thomas when I wanted him to be short. If I hadn't shortened it, who knows how tall Percy would have been. Here's him with an official Percy that I recently got. Very different. Is the shade of green too dark though? Yes. Very much. But the cope, I convinced myself it was kinda accurate to the original locomotive I was basing it on 338 and 1340. Would I have painted it a lighter green if I had found the correct color? Yeah. Would I have done it now? No, I'm lazy. And I think Percy looks fine anyways. But yeah, Percy is basically finished now. My first proper custom after 3 entire years. With my goal finishing it before February completed. But there's still some details I want to do. So you know how Percy's dome is yellow? I have a paint pen now, so it's a go now. Apparently knockoffs don't get name treatment anymore. They no longer have their names printed at the bottom, so I just gave the name myself. Yeah, I wrote it myself. Like a repainted Thomas I had. I also gave a signature on my childhood knockoff Henry. It's J because that's my initial. So yeah, I did both of those. I gave Percy a written name and my signature. Well, he's done now. Wait, hold on, I noticed something. So apparently on the wheels, one of the wheels look more rounded and accurate, and the other is just flat. Huh. How peculiar. So then I went to check my knockoff James, and yeah, apparently I took the wheel from James because the older knockoffs were more accurate. And the other wheels, I don't know where, but yeah. So, Percy really is a hodgepodge. From the wheels to everything. Yeah, even up to the wheels, it's everything. He's a hodgepodge of literally every part. Well, yeah. Now, he's done. Do I plan on making more customs? Sure do. But now it's time for me to save up money to buy sacrificial wood-like engines from custom. So in the meantime, thank you for watching my first video on this channel. Okay, before I officially end this video off, I want to thank some people. Thank you, Domeless Engine. Your customs and especially your disgraceful, disgusting, despicable, and Percy video was a really big inspiration for all these years in how I make my customs. So, many thanks, I respect you. Thank you, NWR Breakvan, for your customs. You are one of the biggest reasons why I got really inspired to make my own customs. Because, you know, of your videos. Even though you seem to not be active around anymore, still, many thanks. Thank you, Gio, for making these high-quality wooden railway videos detailing on how you made your customs. These videos are exactly what I've been looking for in terms of what I want to watch, and have been an inspiration in how I edit and detail my process videos. Also, if I didn't come across your duck video, I might have not returned to the Thomas phase, so thank you for being the reason why I got back. Thank you, Unlucky Tug, for your How I Build Percy video. I discovered GWR1338 and the term hodgepodge from that video. I like the word so much, I decided to base my whole channel and this video around it. Thanks. And thank you to all the people who made the music featured in this video. You guys are really talented, keep on making music. And thank you to my family and friends who have complimented my customs and given me support in this hobby. Or at the very least, don't judge me for still liking talking trades. And thank you, dear viewer, for watching this video. This is my first video and I never expected it to be this long. Like holy cow, 30 minutes. But all I request is a simple like and subscribe because I want to get at least 1,000 views and subscribers, so please help me out, yeah. Anyways, and that's truly it for now. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time I'm active. Goodbye!